Florida is where DeSantis's presidential dream goes to die. All rights reserved. Copyright 2023. Methodology Books Publishing and Robert J. Whitney. No part of this publication may be produced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted, in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without the prior permission of the publisher. Lawrenceville, Georgia, USA. ISBN 9798852462329. Dedicated to the memory of my mother Audrey Dudley and my father Robert Whitney. Thanks to ye whom none should be worshipped along with him. And thanks to my wife Karima for support and the cover concept. Introduction. I open the intro to what I hope is an easy-to-read book by thanking you, the reader, for taking the time to read it. When you have a concern about something, it can serve as a venting or relief to express your thoughts verbally or by writing them down. If someone takes a moment to read what you have to say, it's something for which we should be thankful. I appreciate your reading this and, again, I thank you. The matter of great concern that is weighing heavily on me is the state of the country I grew up in. I can certainly fill this book with many complaints about how life has been here and be easily justified. That doesn't impact my opinion about what it still can be. Having said that, my concern is more about what it is turning into. First, let me ask, does anyone remember a time when a man might be a Republican and his wife might be a Democrat? How about All in the Family with Archie Bunker? Carroll O'Connor was great in the role, but I don't think he could have envisioned what's become of this society. The Archie character was a bigot. He represented some people's longing for the old days. Yet he was still just a simple everyday man with no real finger on the levers of power. He regurgitated concepts that were constantly fed to him. Party differences were more philosophical about the best way the country should be run. Each party took its turn according to who best sold the American people on their ideas and platforms. The agreement was, may the best person/position win. If your party lost, you supported the leadership in all that is good and looked forward to your turn again. Today, people actually use words like enemies when referring to fellow Americans who are guilty of doing nothing more than to disagree with them. The power-hungry, attention-seeking, dictatorial, petty and vindictive governor of Florida is one of the worst examples of this today, and he is the subject of this book. Ron DeSantis is the subject because he not only represents the worst of what this country could be, but I'm old enough to remember that a greater part of the country already grew past people like him. He is only new to himself and those impressed with him. He apparently doesn't really know history. And it could also be that he is very much aware of history and is drawing from the evil people of the past and their strategies and trying to establish the idea that Hayes qualified to be president today. It is unfortunate for him that there are still enough good people in this country that he will also suffer the same fate as his heroes from the past. It's my prayer that Ron DeSantis will find himself relegated to the trash bins of history. At least, that's my hope. In case it's not already obvious, my title and refrain in this book is a reply to his motto. He says, Florida is where woke goes to die. I say, Florida is where Ron DeSantis's dream of becoming president goes to die. Prologue. Please take a good long look at the picture on the previous page. Do we really remember that place and what it is supposed to represent? That's not a picture of America as it has been reduced to by many politicians. It's a picture of what is called the United States of America. There is great meaning and value in its actual name. I remember that people used to follow the practice of naming things that happen in nature, such as hurricanes, with female names. We once had a major hurricane in 1969 that was given the name Camille. Some people called their cars Betsy or Lucille. Regardless of the reasons for each, there has always been some sort of inclination to name or refer to such things in the feminine. Somehow, viewing things in the feminine contributes to or represents the fondness we hold for whatever it is. And many people refer to the countries they came from as the motherland or their mother country. There's a certain affinity a person might have for their country of origin. This is possible despite how some people in that country might behave. This country, the United States of America, has also been referred to as in the feminine. In the poetry about it, the reference is to her. One of the themes in God Bless America is stand beside her and guide her. So, the country, this whole place, was supposed to mean something important. There is a special thing going on here. Ron DeSantis has proven in different instances, which we hope to cover in this book, that he thinks nothing of the concept that the country is supposed to stand on or for. He has no interest in uniting the people nor in even uniting the states. Therefore, it wouldn't be a good idea to turn these United States of America over to him. Just think about a club or organization that has its own little subgroups. The person who becomes the new leader of the organization looks out for his crew or subgroup now that he controls how things go. This is Ron DeSantis. The better person for the organization would be the one who thinks about how to best move the organization forward, which would be to include all members. Just the idea of a person who thinks in terms of red states and blue states seeking to be president of these United States is beyond ludicrous. The picture on the previous page shows the different regions of the country. There are actual human beings who live in those regions. They have various cultures, languages, and even the most basic differences in how they live their daily lives. What is good is that they have a constitution that gives them the right to choose whom they want to represent them. They get to send the best among themselves to go to the capital of their state and meet with others to discuss their concerns and whatever they need to improve their lives. That is just mentioning what the people have in order to bring them together within their own state. They also get to choose people to send to Washington, D.C. to do likewise. Think about it. So many people in this country who may never meet each other ever in life, but they are all citizens who are represented when decisions are made that affect all of them. That is a dream society. The idea of a United States of America was to have a system by which all its citizens are represented and their respective needs can be voiced, heard, and met. Of course, the Founding Fathers had various white or European ethnicities in mind when they planned this out. The country has become something bigger and better than their bigoted imagination. Congress and the Senate are supposed to be full of people who go there to represent their constituents for equal attention to their needs, etc. The plan was never for these representatives to get so caught up in the concept of them versus us to where it is now reduced to words like enemies and red states and blue states. Too many who have been entrusted by the people with representation have sold their souls to whomever from the wealthy or whatever corporation and other such lobbies needs their votes or favors, and they do their bidding even to the detriment of the people who voted for them. Then they use grievances to keep their constituents from noticing that they've been doing the exact opposite of what they sent them to do. It seems, in many respects, like the country is caught up in a civil war of sorts that one political side has declared, and the regular people are either being used as fodder or becoming collateral. Seriously, how much time do the people in Georgia spend worrying about what's going on in the state of New York? Folks are too busy just trying to live their lives. Many people say, "I'm not into politics and New York is New York." This is Georgia. But politicians who represent one state attack politicians in another state in a way that comes off as an ugly statement against the people of the state. That draws the average citizen into nonsense. Ron DeSantis is out of touch with what the country stands for. He operated in Florida in a manner intended to get the attention of the rest of the country. He actually believes the majority of Americans would cheer him on and elect him to the office of President of the United States. Was he paying any attention to Rudy Giuliani? What great tragedy happened in America like the 9/11 terrorist attack on the World Trade Center and the other planes used to attack the United States on that day? Wasn't Giuliani even referred to as America's mayor? Many people also were impressed with him as Attorney General. His approach to organized crime was often praised. The actor, Samuel L. Jackson, actually referred to him in his character as Shaft in the movie remake by the same name. Shaft coined the phrase, "It's Giuliani time," when he was preparing to bring the hammer down on the criminals, and people were able to relate to it. And when Giuliani ran for president, how did that help him? On fame and name recognition, he became a hero and frontrunner. Remember the hero part. Then ugly baggage got in the way. He didn't even survive the primaries of his own party, let alone get elected as president. Now Ron believes running as a villain will do the trick. Who can be that out of touch? The people want the American dream. To live in peace, have opportunities, and be left alone. They cooperate and pay their taxes and live their lives. They don't really want to be taken down the road we've been going down, nor do they want to live in DeSantis's version, which clearly gets worse. There is no denying that there are plenty of people on the same page as DeSantis, but they certainly are not the majority of the country. People in the United States of America get to choose their religion based upon what rings true to them, by whatever basis they establish it on. And there are those who choose no religion at all. In the grand scheme of how the country is supposed to work, neither is to be oppressed for their choice. We could go on and on about the great potential virtues of the United States of America and its principles and theories. The challenge facing the people who inhabit this country is to make it real. While the general population of the country probably means well and has the best intentions, we've come to a place where the people sent to represent their fellow countrymen and women either forgot the plan or never intended to follow it. Instead of operating like they work for and at the pleasure of the people, they now operate like they are the bosses of the people. They hear the people saying, "We want our society to be fair and just." Their response, "We'll make laws just the opposite." The people say, "We want our children to be safe." Their response, "We'll loosen the gun law." This applies to the courts as well. The idea of what is just and what is established already in the law far too often isn't even the case. People have come to expect results in court based on what party the judge in question belongs to or the party of the one who appointed that judge. The innocent and well-meaning members of society are then told lies and made to think their neighbors are either out to get them or take rights for themselves that would cause them to lose some of their rights. None of it is true, but these leaders know that they've lulled the people to sleep with slogans and false praises. The political leaders insist to the people, this is the greatest country on earth. The most powerful country. American exceptionalism. This is their way of saying to the people, this is what we've made this country for you. So, stick with us. And this is what such and such group, fill in the blank, is trying to take from you. But something very important is left out, unfortunately. All the praiseworthy comments made in reference to the United States of America, even its name, require people to make it so. Lately, people who have managed to get into positions of power, some of them don't seem to focus on much else, settle for calling this country America. Do you think this is an accident or convenience of brevity in speech? Or does it reveal intentions? Wouldn't those who mean well for the country do everything to remind us that this is the United States of America? Otherwise, when they say America, maybe we should ask them which America. In my upcoming book titled, America First? Many who say it don't know what it means. I point out the importance of asking them, which America do you mean? Even though the people don't always get along with each other as well as they should or could, this is a beautiful country to see, the landscape, traveling on the road, and the air and from the water. And other than the normal disputes neighbors have, the real ugliness they harbor towards each other is taught and fed to them by those who benefit from their differing and division. And of course, there are those few who have been taught ugliness all their lives. If we understand that the country has a metaphorical soul, we understand that, like any person, it has potential beauty and ugliness, good and bad, right and wrong, intelligence and ignorance, love, hate, etc. We mean by this that it's represented in the people who inhabit the land. There are people who push for good and those who push for evil. Some have creative ideas to move society forward and some offer labor and so forth. All sorts of things and people make up this country. The United States of America is a country that operates under the idea that some people will be wealthy and some will not. This is a natural order because not everyone will have the means to attain wealth or the business acumen or any inheritance. Some people will have higher intelligence than others and so on. Still, everyone has the right to live in peace. The country has laws that intend to see to it that we respect each other's rights and, again, in practice, it can really be a great place to live. Therefore, how in the world can there actually be so many people who prefer it to be a place of chaos and constant conflict with fellow citizens? This is what the country faces with the likes of Ron DeSantis. Florida is proof of that. He claims Florida is proof positive. No, Florida is proof of how negative it can get. There have always existed certain differences among the people in the state, but now it's become an evil man's playground for DeSantis. We don't want to fall into the tendency of others by leaving this without saying that we are not speaking of Florida in terms of the Floridians. We speak mostly of the constant changing of the rules there that are making people's lives miserable. There are many people who have attained positions of power and all they want is more power. They don't try to use their minds to come up with new benefits to bring to the people. They don't even try to come up with new ideas to get you to vote for them. They just try to prevent you from voting or rig the system so that the only people you can vote for are them. This is a call to people of every walk of life. We must decide that we want good, and we are not going to keep letting people find or make up reasons for us to be at odds with each other so they can use those differences they are creating just for power. Again, if the country is going to survive and have balance, we need true creativity and the seeking of good from the right and the left, and not a battle asking us to join one side or the other as enemies. People like Ron DeSantis represent a never-ending world of hatred between people of different political perspectives and ethnicities and walks of life. Don't give him the opportunity to ruin a country with so much potential for good. Remember, American exceptionalism is a myth unless the people of the United States of America show themselves to be exceptional and above the ugliness. Having said what I said above, I ask you to read this book remembering what this country is supposed to be about and is capable of being about. There are too many people of all ethnicities in this country who simply want to live decent lives in peace, not the chaos that's hurled at them every day. But importantly, it is going to take all of us who want good to say, enough is enough, and remind the people who have been elected to represent the people to stop the nonsense and let this country live up to its good potential. Or, as DeSantis seemed to enjoy repeating from Donald Trump, you're fired. I won't be putting citations at the bottom of the pages. I will put the references immediately after whatever I draw from and links if from websites or YouTube videos. Books, a great paradox. There's an old saying, if you want to hide the truth from people, just put it in a book. Every ethnic group in America has people who are avid readers. They each also have many people who either cannot read, read with poor comprehension, or just don't read, even though they can. Whatever the case, that amounts to a lot of people in the country who are uninformed and often repeat whatever they hear from the people they follow. The sad reality is that Ron DeSantis and people of his ilk take advantage of this fact and, instead of helping people, tell the people what they want them to believe. He then goes further to pretend to be a warrior for their interests. He suggests evil to the people's minds and then says, the people are concerned about such and such. So, while reading for self would clear away the falsehoods, doubts, and misconceptions, many people do not and will not read. Books are beacons of light sometimes ignored. This leaves people to be led in the dark by others. Hence the saying, if you want to hide the truth from people of any group, ethnic or otherwise, put it in a book. And to be clear, I'm not making an assessment or judgment against people who cannot or do not read. My concern is for them, and my gripe is with those who take advantage of them because of it. Just think about it. There are people all over the world who believe the books in their possession were written or authorized directly by the one whom we believe created us all, by whatever name we call him. There are many religious people who don't even read those books. The other side of books that inclines anyone to write is that it allows you to combine everyday pieces of life that people might miss or take lightly, and place them in one location so they can see how incredibly beautiful they are or how terribly horrible they really are. In the case of DeSantis, the hope is that at least a hint of how evil he really is will come through and why he is the worst person to give authority to over these United States of America. You might see different flowers during your life and enjoy them in that moment, or not. But when you see a book in which someone has compiled many flowers from a certain region or even from around the world, you can really enjoy their beauty. Similarly, by the same token, when you take Ron DeSantis in news tidbits and sound bites, you can see, in some ways, how simple, self-centered, yet self-unaware he is. But I believe if we put the pieces that make up this individual all in one place, it will be clear who he is. It's clear he's a racist bigot by not only what he does, but what he doesn't do. Has he ever made a big issue about, or made clear to Black Americans that he was addressing something that they experience that harms them and what he intends to do about it? He just drums up nonsense, gets white Americans upset and excited, then makes a grandstand of what he is doing to stand up for them. And it will be clear why the United States of America's best interests will be served by Florida being where Ron DeSantis's dream of becoming president goes to die. A short story. The Punk Bully. There once was a boy named Ron, fictional, not the subject of the book, of course. He was in the 6th grade. Ron used to pick on a little 3rd grader named James. Ron walked through the school with an entourage of fellow bullies. He would take James's milk or whatever food or dessert he liked that day in the cafeteria. Sometimes Ron would take away enough from other 3rd graders to feed his crew. Tragically, no one in his gang would call him on his behavior. Some of them hung out with him because they too were afraid of him. Others did so because of the benefits of his bullying. No one else in the whole 6th grade would speak out against it or help the little 3rd graders. When they're asked by their teachers or parents why they did nothing to stop the bullying, they say, "I was minding my business," or something else weak. Then, one day, a certain type of 5th grader came along who remembered what his mother said to him about bullies. He walked right up to Ron and punched him in the face as hard as he could. Ron screamed like a little girl, started crying, "I think you broke my nose." He ran home. The bully's buddies represent whoever sits by doing nothing about DeSantis's oppression of the powerless because of what they stand to benefit from him. And the other 6th graders represent all the Republican politicians from around the country who remain silent to the evil. This especially means the 2 politicians whom the Republicans hold up as being religious or morally upright: Mitt Romney and Mike Pence. As to Romney, people in the press go to him as if they can count on him to be the voice of reason and stand on principles. They don't think about the fact that it's only based on what they ask him. They count on him to say something reasonable about or against former President Trump, and he ends up doing that. But his silence on the man in Florida is worthy of questioning. As to Trump, Romney seems to count on the people of the United States of America to have that amnesia thing we Americans are famous for. When Romney ran against Barack Obama for president of these United States, he wasn't so principled to stay above the birther movement. He actually utilized people who either agreed with it or endorsed it. He had the evil Sheriff Joe Arpaio as honorary chair for the Romney for President campaign in Arizona. Is there anyone who doesn't know why Arpaio is referred to as evil? Romney sought and got endorsement from Trump in 2012 and received it. Romney said this during a campaign speech: "Now I love being home in this place where and I were raised, where both of us were born." Do you see where he's going? And was born in Henry Ford Hospital. I was born in Harper Hospital. How disingenuous can he be? All of that to set up the punchline: no one's ever asked to see my birth certificate. They know that this is the place that we were born and raised. This is one of the reasons John McCain defeated him in his earlier bid in the primaries. Everyone knew that John McCain was actually a principled man who did not front and make airs of it. And as to Mike Pence, he knew as much as anyone else who he had agreed to run with for the presidency in 2016, and his so-called high moral principles didn't kick in to prevent him. His silence over all the evil that came from his former mate speaks volumes. And not only does his silence over DeSantis's corrupt and evil dealings make a case against him, but his willingness to run for president with renaming a military base after a man who betrayed the country and did so to continue slavery is case closed. And those 2 men are viewed as the best of what the Republican Party has to offer. I don't recall hearing from them about the idea of human beings getting used as fodder in DeSantis's stunt.